achievers, goal getters, and relentless visionaries who are hell-bent on success without burnout stealing your spark. Welcome to the one place where freedom and fulfillment aren't optional. They're the standard. Here, we know that balance, it's bullshit. We are all about burnout-proof systems that don't suck, bold goals backed by smarter hustle, and unapologetically building a life where you're doing what you love and loving how you do it. I'm Ellen Shinky. Welcome to the Burnout Proof Podcast. Hey there, Achiever, and welcome back to another kick-ass new episode of the Burnout Proof Podcast. We are continuing our systems conversation today. But what I wanted to do this week is do something a little bit different. We're not going to necessarily talk tips and tricks, but we're going to talk about my systems journey. How I went from bullet journaler, Erin Condren planner user to a Notion nerd, to the system strategist that I am now. I am not always been a tech person. I have not always been a digital systems person. And this episode is really for the fellow productivity nerds out there, the systems hoppers, anybody who has ever tried to get their life together by jumping from one app to another, thinking maybe this will be the thing that fixes everything for me. Spoiler alert, it's probably not, but I've also been there. And today I'm taking you on that journey, my system story from how I went from being like a tree killer, which I know is a little bit morbid, but whatever, you get it. I went from being somebody who killed trees on the daily, used all of my notebooks, my planners, to somebody who uses Notion for everything, life, business, whatever. Because I think sometimes people look at people like me, people who are Notion users, Notion nerds. I literally do Notion systems now as a part of my business. And they think that we've always been that way. And I am not that human. I am not somebody who was an early adopter of digital planning. I wasn't always a tech girly. For years, I was a queen of paper planners and paper systems. Honestly, my parents would probably be shocked now to know how little paper I actually use on a daily basis compared to when I was a kid. So seriously, let me tell you, and I want you to know from the get-go that I have not always been like this, and I'm going to take you on that journey and ultimately what led me to make the decisions I made and the switches I made in my systems in case it resonates with you and in case you're in this place as well. Like we're talking everything from Trello to Asana to ClickUp to bullet journals to Erin Condren, basically everything in between and how I ultimately landed on Notion. So what I want to go ahead and start with here is with the paper phase. I want to roll it back to the early days of me planning and doing productivity and stuff like that. Because I, like so many of you, started with paper planners and tons of them. I loved the feel of putting pen to paper. I still do love the feel of crossing things off the to-do list. That never went away. I was the Erin Condren life planner person. That was my go-to for a while. I had referral links with them. I had stickers. I color-coded. I used washi tape. If it was cute and it was functional, I was all in on it. So I definitely went through that phase and I loved using my Erin Condren planners in the past. What I ultimately ran into with a lot of those different options, like Erin Condren, I used, what was it called? Daily Greatness. I used the Happy Planner at one point in time. What I ran into, and each of those shifts that I made was made for a reason. Why I stopped using Erin Condren is I didn't like the lack of customizability of it. Yeah, cool. You can do your own cover and put your name on it and all that cuteness. You can pick your different layout. But some weeks I needed an extra notes page and some weeks I didn't. And I didn't like that there wasn't that flexibility. So I think I went from Erin Condren to like the Happy Planner. The Happy Planner is the one that used those ring discs. It's a paper planner that you can add pages in and out. You can remove pages in and out. There's different layouts. So it felt a little bit more customizable. You're going to actually find customizability is a big aspect of this story and how I made some of these pivot. So Erin Condren Happy Planner was a pivot that I made because of customizability. I wanted the ability to move pages in and out, to add extra notes pages as needed, so on and so forth. So I went on that, but Happy Planners are clunky. They're very, very big. I'm sure they're still around, but they're very, very big. And I found, especially when I started traveling in 2018, I was on Remote Year, which Remote Year just recently closed its doors, which was a little bit heartbreaking. Some of my absolute longest friendships at this point in my life, like some of my absolute best friends right now, I met on Remote Year. And I love the people I met on Remote Year. It was such a cool experience. But when you're traveling, when you're literally living out of a suitcase, having a big clunky planner is like a no-go. So it was actually on remote year that I discovered bullet journaling. I loved that it could be done in like a sleek, simple notebook. I loved that it was completely, my preferences and completely customized to me. I could make my own layouts. The layouts could include whatever I wanted. Like I loved the customizability of it. I fell really, really hard for bullet journaling. I loved the creative freedom of it. I loved the ability to make each spread unique. If I was bored with a layout, I could switch to another one. I loved it. It felt like a mix of like planning and scrapbooking, which appealed to kind of my inner creative. I've scrapbooked before. I love scrapbooking. It's a very fun for me. But this is also where the cracks started to show. Around the time I really got into bullet journaling, I was entering the true blue side hustler stage in my life. I have been building a business on the side. Like I started in 2024. So it's been almost 11 years now. Or sorry, not in 2024, 2014. It's been almost 11 years now as I say this, which is nuts to think about. But it was in this stage when I was bullet journaling that I was really starting to build my own business. I got started, as a lot of entrepreneurs do, in network marketing. I eventually moved away from that and I started my own thing. And it was during this bullet journaling phase that this was happening. And I really liked bullet journaling, but I was balancing so much, a full-time day job, building my business on the side. It started to feel tedious to create my weekly layouts. Like in a lot of ways, every single time I turned a page in the bullet journal, it was starting from scratch again. And it started to feel tedious. Tedious to create the layouts, tedious to manually transfer tasks from one spread to the next. It just wasn't working anymore. It became one more thing on my plate instead of something that made my life easier. So after that, what I did is I literally created my own planner. It might very well still be for sale on Amazon. I honestly don't think I've gone in and taken it down. You may have bought it at some point in time if you are like an OG listener, but that was kind of my fix for bullet journaling. I took some of my favorite spreads from bullet journaling and I just turned it into my own paper planner that I sold, that I used. And it felt like a fix. But again, I ran into the lack of customizability. I kind of ran into the same thing I'd run into with like the Erin Condren planners. Some weeks I needed more space. Some weeks I was bored and didn't want to use the same layout, or the same layout wasn't working for me. And so what I realized is I needed a system that was more customizable, more personal, but also more efficient, so that it really made it like, so I didn't have to do all of that manual work every week. I didn't have to create my own layouts. I didn't have to manually transfer tasks. I didn't have to prioritize on my own, but my system did it for me. And that was really when I started to veer into digital planning. So this was probably around 2020, 2021 that I first started experimenting with digital planning. Now, as I moved away from bullet journaling and all of that and exploring digital tools, I'll tell you right now, this phase was really, really chaotic because, as I kind of said at the beginning, a lot of us jump around from app to app, from productivity system to productivity system, because we have this like thing in our heads of maybe this will be the thing that fixes everything for me. And oftentimes it's just shiny object syndrome, let's be honest. But one of the first digital tools that really caught my attention, because when I started entering this phase, I got deep into the YouTube vortex, and Notion is a very popular tool on the YouTube vortex. So the first tool that really caught my attention was Notion. I found it as of now about 4 years ago. And initially I was very intrigued. It felt powerful. It felt flexible. It felt like it had a lot of potential. I loved the aesthetic of it, but I wasn't fully ready to commit to it, because I was thinking I was kind of had shiny object syndrome. I kind of kept finding out about new tools and being like, okay, maybe this is going to be the tool. So I didn't commit to Notion. Instead, I just kept bouncing around from platform to platform. I tried Trello, which what I didn't like about Trello is I didn't like that it seemed like everything was built around Kanban boards, which yes, is like the point of Trello, but I found Kanban boards useful for some things and not useful for others. And I didn't like how limited my customizations were inside of Trello. Asana, again, very functional, but it felt very corporate to me. I didn't like the aesthetic aspects of working in Asana. And then eventually I landed on ClickUp. And actually, of all of the ones I tried, I liked ClickUp the most. In early iterations of some of my systems programs, I actually had templates for ClickUp as well as for Notion. I liked with ClickUp that there was so much potential to put information in a lot of different ways. Like I liked that I could have Kanban boards and tables and lists. I liked that I could store images and documents. I liked a lot about ClickUp. I like that it was pre-built and I didn't really have to build anything like you do in Notion. I will say all of that about ClickUp. I actually think ClickUp's a great system. But each time I jumped to a new system, it kind of felt like I was looking at it from the lens of this is it. This will be the tool that finally makes me feel organized and on top of everything. And it never was, because the thing that I found is I was constantly chasing the next best system. I fell for this trap of thinking that a different system was going to magically change my life, which I think is what a lot of us do. It's why people buy the new planner every year that they may not, necessarily stick to. And like I said, ClickUp was probably my favorite. It was versatile. It was pre-built. A lot of the things I liked about ClickUp are actually, for my Notion users, very similar to what is in Notion. The fact that I can look at my information in a lot of different ways. But what I didn't like about ClickUp is it didn't feel customizable. It didn't feel aesthetic. It still felt like the customization options were so limited. And I'll be honest, I come from the Erin Condren sticker bullet journal world. And part of the fun of planning for me was making it personal and was making it pretty and was making it fun. There's got to be some fun in functional. And ClickUp didn't give me that vibe. So ultimately, I circled back to Notion. Really, Notion is the only productivity app that I've ever come back to multiple times. Like during this process, I would try Trello and then come back to Notion. I would try Asana and then come back to Notion. I would try ClickUp and then come back to Notion. Notion was the constant in all of this, but because it felt like what those other systems were lacking for me, Notion had. So when I came back to Notion this time around, I don't know if it was like a switch that flipped in my head that was like, no, I'm finally going to commit this time, or what it was, but something clicked. And this time around, I had no desire to leave. This time around, I felt ready to commit. It's honestly, I'll use the analogy for my entrepreneurs out there. When I first got into entrepreneurship, I jumped around similarly to different niches. I was a health and fitness coach. I was a personal growth and clarity coach. I was a productivity coach. I did all of those iterations before I was a burnout coach. But similarly to with burnout for me, when I found burnout as my niche in my business, I've never had any desire to leave. I've never had any desire to do something different. I've never had any unsettled feelings or uncertainty about whether or not I belonged here, because I feel 100% with burnout feel like I belong here. And it's kind of become the same thing with Notion. There has been no part of me that has had a desire to try another system since I settled down. So I realized once whatever clicked into place, I quickly realized that Notion really was exactly what I had been looking for all along. What stood out about Notion to me is its customizability. Notion let me build exactly what I needed, nothing more, nothing less. And it allowed me to lay it out exactly how I need it. The thing that I run into with other systems is how it's set up might not be laid out the way I think. Maybe I want this information at the top. Maybe I want both of these different tables on the same page because that makes sense in my brain. And in the ClickUps and the Asanas, you can't do that. But with Notion, you can. If it makes sense for me to flow from my client systems into my project systems, I can set my Notion up to be like that. And not a lot of these other platforms allowed that. So that customizability really, really fit for me. It felt like my system was adapting to me rather than me having to adapt to my system. And that was really, really important for me when it came to setting up my systems. Like I feel like so often we are working against our systems. We have to adapt how we think, how we flow through our day to the systems we're using. And Notion's just not like that. And that's the thing that I really love about Notion. That's why people will jokingly call Notion users a cult, because we all love it that much, because I think that's what it became for a lot of us. The second big thing about Notion, why Notion stood out to me, was the aesthetic appeal. Like I said, I come from the Erin Condren bullet journal, background for me. So the aesthetic appeal of Notion, even though it's got a very minimalist kind of, I don't know why I said minimalist that way, minimalist, it has a very minimalist kind of vibe to it. It has this beautiful aesthetic appeal to it. You can add photos, you can add widgets, you can add covers, you can have cute little icons. That was huge for me. I loved making my Notion workspace look and feel like me. It wasn't just a tool. It kind of became a creative outlet in and of itself. I have said for years, Notion feels like digital scrapbooking to me, which is perfect because I'm a former scrapbooker. I love it. And then the last thing that I really didn't realize I needed until probably the last year or so is the all-in-one functionality. There is already so much about entrepreneurship and having a business that feels like it's pulling my brain in 80,000 different directions. And with Notion, I have literally moved so many of my systems into Notion, CRM in Notion, content planning and scheduling in Notion. Like, it has allowed me to streamline my systems down. And in doing so, I feel like I mentally feel more streamlined as well. So like, I don't have to jump between apps anymore. Everything from my business workflows to my personal goals is in one place. I could not even go on Google. Like, I could not even open Google Chrome and still be able to do like 90% of the shit that I want to and need to do in my day. Like, I want to actually talk about the digital scrapbooking piece a little bit more with Notion though, because I think it's a huge reason why Notion works for people like me and perhaps like you who love both the creativity and the productivity. They need the aesthetic and the functional. In Notion, I can customize the colors, I can add images, I can embed videos, I can make my workspace feel very, very personal. It's not just a list of boring tasks. It is a space that really inspires me every single time I'm open it. And I finally realized that this perfect system that I'd been chasing for so long, it wasn't about finding like a magic tool that changes your life. It was about finding a tool that adapts to me. And yeah, you could argue, well, that Notion is that magic tool because it does adapt to me, whatever, like semantics. I think it's about finding a tool that works with you, that doesn't work against you, and then sticking with it long enough to make it work. And honestly, the more I use Notion, the more I love it. I am such a Notion nerd. I love using Notion, and it's now the foundation of so much of what I do and the foundational system of everything that I do, from content planning to client management to personal goal setting. Like, it's so huge. So if you are hearing this and you're thinking, Ellen, this sounds great, but Notion is so overwhelming, I hear you. We're actually, as this podcast is going live, talking about this in my Burnout and Brews weekly. I do like a weekly group coaching on Tuesday morning. So as this is going live, that is exactly what we're talking about right now. But since we're talking about this literally as this is going live, I want to give you some quick tips to get started. Okay. So I've said it for years. I don't think anybody should start using Notion just by like opening Notion and starting to screw around with it. I literally talked to somebody this morning as I'm recording this who was just like, oh, I'm just going to screw around with Notion this weekend. And I was just like, love it. But I don't want you to just start screwing around in Notion. I always recommend starting with templates, whether it is a free template you download, a template you buy, or one of the built-in templates in Notion, which some of which are great, some of which are terrible. But start with templates. You don't want to try to build the system from scratch, because I always say the best part of Notion is the worst part of Notion. It's a blank slate. You can build whatever you want. But when you first get started in Notion, it is a blank slate and you have to build what you want. So don't try that when you're first getting used to it. We just need to see if the system itself, if the way in which it flows and works for you. And the best way to do that is to start with a template. Use templates to give yourself a head start. I have a systems bundle on my website, and go ahead and drop the link in the show notes below. It gives you that as well as an automation 101 class to help get you started with your system. So if you need a template to get started, that is a great option. The second tip I have is to focus on one area at a time. I find another thing that a lot of people do wrong with any system, but particularly with Notion, is they try to organize their entire life and get their entire system set up like in a day or in a weekend. No, it's not going to happen. And you're probably just going to get frustrated and disappointed. My Notion systems have been 4 years in the making. Most of the people you see on YouTube have been using their Notion systems for months, if not years. And honestly, it's probably years. So we can't compare our systems to theirs. We've just got to pick one thing. Maybe it's task management, maybe it's project management, maybe it's content creation, maybe it's clients. Pick one area and really, really hone using Notion for that. That would be my second tip. And then last but not least, especially if the aesthetic pieces I've been talking about are you and you are like me in that sense, make it personal. Make your Notion space a fun, inspiring place to be in. Add images, add quotes, change the colors, do light mode versus dark mode, have fun with icons, make it yours. That's part of the fun and the magic of Notion, is its ability to be so personalized. And that is something that I absolutely, if you're going to work in Notion, I think that is a big missing piece if you're not leveraging that. So if this episode has you thinking, okay, I need a systems overhaul, but I have no idea where to start. We've already talked about my free systems bundle, but what I also have is I have my anti-burnout Notion digital planner. It is the ultimate template to help you organize your business, your life without overwhelm. And it comes with a walkthrough course. So you get the template, which literally is all encompassing. Like if you head to the link in the show notes, you will see all of the stuff that's included in the template. It's this all encompassing template, and it has a walkthrough course to teach you how to use every single view inside of the template. Okay. So definitely check that out. And then last but not least, if you already are a Notion user and you just need a Notion level up, you want to take advantage of automation so you're doing things less manually, book a VIP day with me, okay? If you want me to do the heavy lifting of setting up your systems, automating your processes, making sure everything runs smoothly, let's freaking do it. I have been loving the fact that I made this a part of my offer suite. It used to be something that was solely rolled into private coaching, but I decided, why the hell not? Let's make it a offering in and of itself. So like by the end of a single day, we're talking done in a day, you'll have a fully customized system that works as hard as you do, my friend. So that is my system story, from killing trees with paper planners to building a burnout proof Notion system. It's been a journey of trial and error, and it's been a journey that's been going for like 10 years at this point in time. And I'm sharing it because I know how many of you are on the same path. I know how many of you look at people like me and are like, oh, she must always have been that way. We now know that's not true. We now know that I came from the paper planning world. There were aspects of paper planning that I missed when I went digital, but Notion's been the way I found that balance between the two. So remember, your systems are going to be the thing that gives you the capacity to do the life-giving stuff. Your systems should make your life easier, not harder. And if you are tired of platform hopping and feel like nothing sticks, maybe give Notion a try. Okay. It's been the fix for me, and I think it'll be the fix for you too. So with that, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening or watching if you're watching this on YouTube. I hope you subscribe and tune into the next episode of the Burnout Proof Podcast. And remember, your systems are here to support your hustle, not drain it. So until next time, stay relentless, achievers.